Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Got the D-Man here, and I'm glad you could join me today. As always, it was a hot one yesterday, 97 degrees in the afternoon when I stopped working. Thank God for ice water. Today it's not going to be quite as hot in St. Louis, Missouri today. They're talking about some rain. But so much for the weather report. Smash that like button, subscribe. We've got the video coming out today. The Power is Within, a continuation of the series from my new book, available on Amazon. Pick up your copy today. I know it will help you. That's why I wrote it, to help you. I certainly didn't write it to make money, but if I make money off of it, that's okay. I like money, and I'm sure you do too. So let's go, and maybe I can help you figure out a way that you can make more of that money. But that won't bring you happiness. I'm telling you, I know for sure. You think it will, but it will give you some extra comfort. But sometimes being comfortable is not congruent to being a man or being successful. Discomfort, pain, suffering helps us to grow if we look within. Without further ado, let's go. And we are on location 196. And we start out at Each Memory. This is the ebook, the Kindle book. Each memory after that only reinforced the disparity between how I felt inside and how I was supposed to feel. I was talking about how it was difficult as a child in my home because my dad drank, I think, alcoholically, but he quit when I was 13. But we all have difficult times in our childhood because there are no perfect parents, no perfect households. Even though you may see a family and think, gosh, they got the perfect family, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, my mother always said, and this is true. Okay, by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I was sure that I was nothing but a burden on my already overburdened parents. Nothing I did or said mattered to them, so I felt. They didn't care about me. I wasn't good enough for their love, or so I thought. On the other hand, I was supposed to be hard and not care what people thought of me. I wasn't supposed to feel feelings, no matter how much I felt them. At the very least, I wasn't supposed to talk about them. That's what I spent most of my childhood believing and protecting myself from, and that carried on deep into the journey of my adolescence and adulthood. When I grew up, you didn't want to be a crybaby. Crying, as far as men or boys, you just didn't do it. But now I realize it's okay to cry. I had to cry about a lot of things in my later years because I never was able to experience them emotionally when I was younger, or so I felt. Now, I'm not talking about going out here and crying in front of everybody, crying in front of your girlfriend, crying in front of your friends, your mom and dad, or whoever when you grow up, when you're older, when you're an adult. I'm talking about experiencing the emotions of sadness or grief or loss or happiness, bliss. There are tears of joy and tears of sadness. Experience these things by yourself, with yourself. You cannot be crying in front of your woman all the time. She will take that as a weakness. I don't care what she says, unless it's your mom or your dad dying, I wouldn't cry too much in front of her. Few women can take that. They all say they want you to show them more emotions, tell them how you feel. But in the end, it makes them extremely uncomfortable because hundreds of thousands of years of evolution have programmed women to desire and feel safe with a man who is strong. And if you're crying, they see that as a weakness. Now, many women will argue with me on that, but I'm telling you, talk to psychiatrists or psychologists who do couples counseling, a good one, the good ones, and they'll tell you that when a man cries in front of a woman, there's something about it, they're like a deer in the headlights, the woman is. She says she wants that, but she loses attraction for her man when she sees that. Don't listen to what women say they want. Look at what they respond to and how they respond to certain things. Judge by actions. And that's the same with a man. Don't listen to what a man is saying. Watch what he does. Who are his friends? You can tell a lot about a person by who they spend time with. So emotions are neither good nor bad. As Shakespeare said about things, nothing is either good or bad. Thinking makes it so. But there's a time and a place for emotions, at least for a man, especially for a man. You need to be the rock. You need to be the mountain for your woman, okay? So, but that's a whole nother video. Let's get back to the book. Okay, I've known for a long time that my parents never intended to hurt me, that they just didn't want me to feel bad. Not to avoid my feelings altogether. They wanted to protect me in the only way they knew how. As a child, I just stuffed those feelings down and did my best to pretend they weren't there. But there they sat for years, decades, until like a well-packed explosive device, they finally started going off. Those things will come out somewhere. You have to experience emotions. Well, for example, let's say you were 10 years old and your mother died in a car accident, God forbid. Okay, maybe you grew up in a situation like I did where you really weren't allowed to cry every day for that until you got the grief out, because maybe your father told you to suck it up and be a man, or she's gone, just forget about it, whatever. But that emotion is still inside of you. Emotions are neither good nor bad, as I said. Express those emotions in a healthy way. For grief, you cry. Feel the sadness. Go through it. And as I said, go to a room by yourself and just let that out. I've done it many times. I went for years and never cried, for years. But I've also made the mistake of crying in front of my girl, not so I could have her back, but expressing emotions as I'm talking about, maybe about something that happened in my childhood. It just makes them uncomfortable. And as I said, a lot of women will argue with me on this, but when you do that in front of a woman, it comes off as weakness, even if it's not. I'm anything but weak. I've been too tolerant and too patient, too compliant. That doesn't work either. You're a man, you have to lead. I'm getting off subject again. Let's go. Okay, one of the first steps to changing the inner you is being willing to experience the feelings you feel. Anger gets a bad rap. It's okay to feel angry. Go punch a bag, go work out, go run. Use that anger to motivate you to get into shape, to do some hard work, to do something around the house, whatever. Anger is not bad. Just expressing it in a wrong way is bad. Express it in a constructive way. Let that anger motivate you to better yourself, to look within yourself. Why are you angry? Anger comes from fear. It's fear-based. What are you afraid of? Everything is within you. Look within yourself. What is that anger indicating in you that you need and want to change? You can't not feel your feelings. You can only delay the feeling. And the longer you do, the more damaging they will be when you finally do. In the same way a bad infection can only heal by being drained and cleaned, so must we allow our feelings to be felt so that we can let them out and allow ourselves to heal emotionally. Because here's where they'll come out. They'll come out on the people that you love the most. Your wife, your kids, your mom and dad, whoever. Those angry feelings will come out. I remember one time, probably 5 years before my mom passed, we got into an argument about something when I was there taking care of my father. I was living there with my kids. I had to stay there to help with my father, okay? And it all went back to when I was a kid and she was working second shift and she left me there with my dad, who I suppose my brother said came home drunk every night or drank every night. And he was, look, he did a great job compared to what he was raised up in. But I was afraid of him. He never beat me. He whipped us with a belt, but that was the time back then, okay? But I never remember seeing hardly any emotion from my father but anger. So when he came home from work, we left the house. It wasn't like we jumped up into his arms, "Oh, Daddy, I'm glad you're home." So we left him alone. Okay, that's the way it was. So I grew up afraid, and I was angry at my mom for leaving me there. I felt abandoned by her because she went to work when I was like 4 or 5. Well, I think she may have been working before that, because I remember being at a lot of babysitters. As I said, my brother remembers more than I do. But I know they did the best they could. Hey, I always had a home. I always had clothes, food. Dad cooked every night when he came home. So you need to look back and find the good in your childhood. The story I used to tell was, well, they never hugged me. They never told me they loved me. I never felt loved. They told me I shouldn't feel this way, etc., etc. I painted a bleak picture of my childhood. It was a story. I changed that story. Now I look at the good, and every day that passes, both my mom and dad are gone now. I wish they were here so I could tell them how much I appreciated what they did do for me. Now, that wasn't the story I had 10 or 15 years ago. I changed that story. Whoever they are, they say that 75% of what you remember from your past is not even true. So why not change your story? It may all be bullcrap, for lack of a better way to say it. Your story, what you remember. Talk to one of your siblings, and I'll guarantee you their view of their childhood in the same house with the same parents will be different from yours. Is it because they were treated differently? Maybe a little bit, but each person has a different perception of their childhood, as we all have a different perception of everything that goes on outside. We see it through the filters, the things, the experiences that have happened to us as we have grown up, as we have experienced this life. That's why no two people actually see the same thing, because everything is seen through the filters of your experiences. Okay? Here we go. When I was a kid, my father came home drunk one night, like he often did. Only this night, when he stepped out of his truck, he was carrying a little collie pup, just a week or two old. I still remember that. I begged him to let me keep it, and probably only because of how gone he was, he allowed me to. Itzy was immediately my best friend. That's what I named it. Everywhere I went, he was there, hunting, fishing, exploring the vast woods near our house. Even when I went to school, he would follow me to the end of the property and sit there until I returned. It was the first time I ever felt truly valued and understood. No matter what was going on around me, I could count on Itzy. My best friend, my dog, man's best friend. That's so true. I still remember that dog. And he would protect me, like when somebody came to the house and we didn't know who he was, he would go after him. So he was my best friend. And we'll go on to talk about that later, because I lost that dog. And I never experienced the feeling of loss until many years later of my best friend. And it came out in many different ways. We'll talk about that tomorrow. And in a strange way, it comes out and you don't even know that you had any emotion about that loss. But unless you experience the grieving of a loss, and loss comes in many forms. It could be a relationship with a dog. It could be a relationship with a person. It could be the loss of your house through fire, or you didn't pay the mortgage and they foreclosed. You had a beautiful car and they repossessed it. It could be anything. Any kind of a loss, there's a certain grieving, because we become attached to things. I know a lot of the gurus and different people talk about not being attached, but as human beings, it's very difficult to not form an attachment to something we love. For example, this ring I have. I don't think anything about that ring, but if I lost that ring, I would have a feeling of loss. It's a small thing, but I've been wearing it for years. Let me misplace it, I never take it off, but if I did, I would have a feeling of loss. I'm attached to that ring. Even though I don't consciously feel like I am, I know I am. And that's the way things become. And that's why it's okay to have things, it's okay to have money, as long as those things and money don't have you. So I'm going to stop there. Smash that like button, subscribe. Thanks for joining me. Hit the notification bell, and I'll see you tomorrow.